Researched with horses and has now been brought out an equine product for horses and large animals called Velocity. Can you give the audience a deeper dive into the horse and large animals? Why is the delivery system with the key ingredients beneficial for animals? And what would you recommend to an owner of large animals and how to apply it and what to expect?
Sure, yeah. So essentially, with when you look at some of the, thoroughbred racehorses is what we used in our research study when we did the muscle biopsies. And when you look at thoroughbreds, for example, and other animals, they rely on carnosine a little bit more. It's a large muscle mass. There's a few things that can dictate that. Whales, hummingbirds, animals that have to deep dive for a long time where that becomes very acidic, or an animal that needs to be anaerobic for a very long time, like a hummingbird. Those are all examples of where carnosine is more important, even more so than it is in humans. And on top of that, with thoroughbreds, it's more difficult to increase muscle carnosine than it is in humans. And so the challenge there is a little bit more insurmountable than it would be even with the humans and trying to get something through the skin like that. And so in doing so, that is exactly what we set out to investigate. And we did use thoroughbred racehorses. That study has been published in peer-reviewed research. And what we saw essentially was anywhere from a 100 to a 300% increase in carnosine within the muscle tissue itself after an hour. And that is beneficial in so many different ways. As I mentioned, within the human body, the same thing applies, and even more so on the recovery component, because thoroughbred racehorses, when they are training or practicing, if you will, their bodies go through a tremendous amount of inflammation around the muscles and the joints. And so, being able to help mitigate that and observe that in our study, was really eye-opening, because it was definitely not something that we had hypothesized. The performance piece, we understand the potential, the ability to deliver. We had hypothesized we should be able to get some. We didn't expect to see such a large amount after only one application. But the mitigation of inflammation was definitely not something that we had postulated much about. And that is, one of those early key pieces that kind of opened our eyes to the potential of this outside of the performance arena. And so, for other large animals and even smaller animals, the benefits of recovery and reducing the impact of daily life on the muscles and joints and prolonging the life, expectancy potentially for those animals, is something I think people will have great value for, obviously, because most animals are like an extension of the family, and or in the case of the racehorses, it's an actual business. And so it's a kind of a no-brainer in order to kind of help maintain a better overall health and wellness, and hopefully increase longevity and lifespan for those animals, and the quality of life. So it exceeds the potential component completely, from our perspective, and how we look at that.